Hello and welcome to Angular Air, episode 42. We're here today with Aaron Frost to talk about the Angular community. But first, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, AngularClass. AngularClass, for those of you guys that don't know, is a great training. They do awesome Angular 2 training, and all the guys, Patrick, Stapleton, and everybody at AngularClass is awesome. So definitely, if you have any Angular training needs, especially your transition to Angular 2, you should check them out. All right, so let's see who's on the panel today. We got Aimee Knight.
Hello.
Gleb Bahmutov.
Hello. Sorry about the video.
Olivier Combe.
Bonsoir.
And, of course, we're here today to talk with Aaron Frost. So, Aaron, why don't you give us a quick intro?
So, I'm Aaron. Everyone calls me Frosty, so feel free. I have been a developer for a few years. My passions outside of JavaScript are my family and ice fishing. So, I'm super stoked it's getting cold again. But yeah, that's kind of who I am. I work at a company called Domo. We're a big Angular shop. We do some React on our mobile web as well. It's a big JavaScript house.
That's awesome. So we brought you on today to talk about community, and I'm just curious to start off with what do you think? What do you define as a community? Because you can think of that in many different ways. So when you're thinking about a community, what way do you think about it?
That's a good question. It's a group of people who have similar needs and similar structure, and there's a lot of reasons why I think the Angular community really caught fire at the time that it did. It was we were in a JavaScript world where it was newly JavaScript. Backbone was the greatest thing ever, right? And everyone was like, dude, we want to do more of this JavaScript, but it seems daunting. And Angular came out, and because it had so many opinions and it had so many ways, it prescribed so much. Really, all of us ended up doing Angular very similarly, and it allowed us to build this huge community around it. And it was unprecedented because, with Backbone, as amazing as it was, you really had to build your own framework on top of it, and so everyone ended up with a different Backbone framework and a custom thing, and so you couldn't really create a user group or have a meetup around Backbone because everyone else's Backbone had nothing to do with your Backbone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And Angular shows up and they're like, hey, we have all these prescriptions, and inside there's some flexibility, which is beautiful as well. And the prescriptions is really what allowed it to have hundreds of people meet together with almost similar code structures and similar concerns and things that they liked about it, things that they didn't like about it, and problems they were trying to solve because of it. And so it really caught it at a time where it was hey, this is giving us some structure in a time where we really haven't had any, and it just took off. And there's been a couple different ways. As it got more solid, people kind of got on it. So some of the users, how many of you guys are pre 1.1 users, you're 1.0 or even 0.9 release? Are any of you guys 0.9, less than 1.0?
I don't think so.
What are you, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I was right after the 1.0 release when I jumped on board.
Okay, so that's 2013-ish, right?
Yeah.
So it goes back to even sometime in 2012, where the earliest users really are from 2012. And it came out and it really caught this huge wave in 2013, and it allowed communities to pop up overnight. And you look at last year alone, and there's been 6 major Angular conferences just in 1 year, which is absolutely insane. But it provided structure at a time when there really wasn't a lot. And Ember was there, and Angular, they battled there, and I have some opinions on why I think that the leaders of the Angular team really helped the community in a way that I don't think any other community leaders had really done it. So part of it is the structure allowed us leaders in the community, like people like Olivier and you, Jeff, to be leaders and lead a community as a whole. But the other part of the community, I think, it comes from the Angular team themselves, and it starts at the very top with Brad Green, and it goes down to Igor as well, like how they've really conditioned us to be respectful and to teach one another and really harvest like the OSS mentality. So yeah.
Well, yeah. So can we get into that a little bit? Like, what is it specifically that makes a community good? What, like, I mean, you mentioned that some of the leaders, Brad and the team, that kind of are models for everybody else, right? So what specifically do you think, or what are some examples of what they do that you see helps the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's fair. A good community leader doesn't like say my product's better than someone else's. A good community leader says there's a lot of nails out there, there's a lot of tools that we're going to need, like use the one that matters and the one that makes the most sense. And I feel like the Angular team's always said that. And they've collaborated with everyone, where a lot of people tend to silo up and get into their camps and kind of get in their trenches and start shouting their chants. I think that the Angular team's been really good at like breaking down silos and working with other teams. I can't think of a major framework right now that they don't work with. Like, I mean, the new stuff from like the Angular CLI, they took a lot of that from the Ember CLI, and the component router took a lot of its ideas from the Ember's router, and Angular 2 has been transformed by the emergence of React and some of the ideas that they came up with, and the pressure that the React team put on them to make speed like matter more than it did. And so, and they work with them, and like they work with the native script team, and they've got React Native running through native script with Angular. Like it's a crazy mess, but like I really can't think of a major team currently that they're not working with, that they're not reaching across the aisles to work with, and I think it's inspirational, like to see that as a community member, to be like, oh, I shouldn't say X framework's better and like stick my tongue out. Like I should be like, they all have a merit, and like respect the people that build it. So yeah, like I think that's some of the things that they've done, and they've done others, but that's some of the main stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree for sure. It helps, and especially, I mean, you do get a different tone. Like, not to single one person out, but when you sometimes follow Tom Dale, like, I mean, he's really funny. Like, I love seeing his tweets and everything like that. But he does have a certain tone, right? That like is different than you see from the Angular, the leaders within the Angular team. So I think that does filter down.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I was at Google, it was like 2 years ago, and I was just there for a thing, and luckily Brian Ford from the Angular team was at lunch, and Tom Dale was at lunch with him, and like my brain exploded. I was like, why isn't Brian punching him in the face right now? Like, because I was like Tom is like so. It's passion. Like I really can't fault him, because it's the same thing that makes me love everyone else. It's their passion, but it's in a way that it does kind of rub some people the wrong way, right? And the people that follow him, they love it, but other people, I see how it rubs the wrong way, and it really kind of taught me, like, this is how the Angular team goes when they go with those punches. Is they just they disarm people by being their friends, and like by bringing them in and seeing how they can help each other, and they've done it over and over. And they're still doing it today. And when you talk to them about Angular 2, it's like, wow, dude, they've pulled Microsoft in, which Google and Microsoft streaming this thing is like none of us ever thought that was going to be a thing, right? And they're trying to take hints and work with the React team, and I think that the React team is doing an excellent job at coaching them in some ways, but also like putting the pressure on to make it more of a real-time competition, and I love that. I love that the community, like the leaders of that community as well, the React community, are super respectful and encourage that kind of respect across boundaries, and I love that, you know. So yeah, like it's not just the Angular community. In my opinion, the Angular community is one of the greater examples of a community with great leaders in the community, but also over the community, right?
Yeah. Do you think that it's also Brad who's doing an excellent job at keeping everything together?
Yeah, yeah. Brad's just great. Like when you realize all the stuff he does at Google, it's kind of crazy that we get so much of his time on the Angular stuff because he's in charge of just so much. And I've never really seen a manager over a technical team who knows as much about his team as Brad does. Like Brad, the way he describes Angular 2, you're like, you're not supposed to know that. You're a manager. But you do, so it's disturbing. Like, stop knowing those things. But he does, and he's great. Like, he really, really cares. And so, Brad's great. Like, I have some of the craziest respect for that guy. But, you know, you look at his past, Brad Green, and I mean, he worked with Steve Jobs in the past. He's worked with some of the giants on whose shoulders we still walk today. So, Brad's, like, forged from the mountain of, like, good, like, community and, like, growth. So I think Brad is like the greatest guy that could have coupled with Mishka to make this thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Brad does a great job as well. But one thing that stood out for me was, like, a year ago or so, there was somebody who wrote like a blog post kind of ripping on Angular and kind of in a somewhat unfair way. Like, he wasn't really that informed, but just got a lot of hits and that type of thing. And he was actually a GD, and so at the GD summit, I think, you know, I think the Angular team, like, sought him out and, like, talked with him for a while, and you just see all these pictures posted then of them with their, like, arms around each other, just like having a good time or whatever, which was, like, a little bit off-putting, right? Like, this guy just kind of was railing into them, but they, just like you're talking about, was able to kind of turn him to their side to a degree.
So I remember when that happened. I'm, like, really quirky. If someone attacks me, like, I get like a little kid and I get scared. But when people attack my friends, like, I go crazy, and I don't know why, but I do. And that guy, Daniel Steigerwald, I'll say his name. He's my friend now. Like, we're friends now. But at that time, I was like, Daniel Steigerwald is, like, public enemy #1. And he was really mad on Angular, and I didn't get it. And it turns out that he and some of the Angular team members, they're Slovakian, so, like, they kind of come from the same place. I think maybe Vojta and him went to the same school. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Some of the Angular team members are from, like, the same city he's from, so, like, they have friendships that go back to other countries. And so, but yeah, when we met and, like, they had Steigerwald, by the time it was done, he had, like, an Angular 2 shirt on, and he was, like, smiling, and I was like, wow. And I got a chance to talk with him, and he ended up being a really, really sweet guy. Like, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, I know we rubbed each other the wrong way, but I just want to let you know it's, like, not personal." And he was really cool about it. And so, like, I have nothing but love for Steigerwald today, and I know it's his passion. Like, he wasn't trying to be mean, just like Tom Dell's not trying to be mean, or anyone else who you see like they're being mean. Like, I don't really think people, like, wake up going, I'm gonna be mean today. Like, I'm gonna up my pissed off people count, like, today. Like, that's my goal. Like, I think they're just passionate, and so it's hard to hate them for the thing that you do love them for as well. It's their passion, you know. So yeah, Steigerwald's a good example. But how the Angular team diffused him was, like, a huge lesson for me, and I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome that they were able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about some of the things that the Angular community does right. But what are some areas that you think that we can improve as a community?
So I'm probably going to get flamed for this answer, but I think that's okay. I'll weather that. I think Angular made writing really complex apps easier, and so I think that sometimes we get people into the Angular community who aren't as experienced JavaScript developers as some of the other communities because the bar is just so much easier, and that's a beautiful thing, right? But I think sometimes in our ignorance, because I'm going to throw myself into that category, we tend to get super tribal about our Angular and like we treat it like it's our own, and someone's like, Angular's not the best, and we're like, what? You know, and we get super like digging our heels in, and it's like, you know what? Sometimes it isn't, and that's just the thing. Sometimes you should use D3 on its own, and you should just pretend Angular doesn't exist. And when you're trying to get 60 frames per second as you drag something across the screen, you know what? Angular's got warts. And don't be mad that some other framework doesn't. Like, I think the Angular team is just as guilty, if not more, of we're a hammer and everything's a nail and we just use Angular to solve it all. I think we're more guilty of that than probably any other community. For better or worse, I think you should use Angular for a lot of stuff. Like, if you have to have a de facto tool, right? Right, Jeff? Right, everyone on the panel? Like, you should have a de facto tool. And you shouldn't use it when it makes sense, but I think that we get too tribal about our de facto tool, and I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's healthy at all. So yeah.
I feel like it. Sorry, I feel like it's changing in the last year or so, and people start to realize that Angular has quirks. Maybe that's because React is gaining traction, but I feel like it's changing.
I hope it is.
I've always felt like too. So obviously Rails is front end, Rails is back end, and Angular is front end. But I've always felt like the communities are somewhat similar because the barrier to entry is so low. So you get a wide variety of people in it, and sometimes it's easy to learn the framework and not learn the language behind it. But at the same time, the Rails community is a really, really welcoming community, as is the Angular community. So.
Yeah, and and that's the thing. Like, when you're picking a framework, like, let's go back and say that Backbone was potentially as awesome as Angular, which that's debatable. Because I couldn't build a community around it, because everyone's was so Frankenstein, there was really not a lot of appeal in it for me, like long term. Because if I go to hire someone, like if I'm like, hey Amy, come work with me on my Frankenstein version of Backbone, you're like, oh, well, I have a massive learning curve because I have to come learn your Frankenstein, and like there's really no community there. I can't like pluck people out of the community who are experts because they have to come and ramp up on our stuff. And Angular, like, that's a huge part of the community around Angular. Is like I could hire a lot of people to know Angular, and I just have to tell them to come in and read my style guide and don't break my rules in my style guide. But other than that, I know that they know how to do it already. You know what I'm saying? And so I think you're totally right, Amy. The community itself is so welcoming that like you have to consider that as a manager of a company that's picking a framework. I think you're totally right.
Yep, there's good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Jeff, sorry that I ripped on the community there. I felt like you asked me to rip on them. Confirm or deny?
No, deny.
Deny what? You asked me some of the bad things about the community.
Well, I don't want you to rip on it per se, but...
Yeah. I wasn't ripping on anyone specifically. I just was pointing out some of the warts.
Sure. No, that's valid. That's valid. Yeah, so let me throw some situations out at you. So, like, we've gone, some good things, some bad things, and some of this you've said is, the Angular community wants to help other people and that type of thing. But let me throw some tricky situations out at you, and how you should handle it as a good community member. So let's say that you are at a conference and you're sitting next to somebody who starts, ripping on Angular, let's say, like a Tom Dale or Daniel type. So how should you respond to that type of thing? Just ignore it, or like try to talk to them, reach out to them. Like, what do you think as a good community member you should be doing?
I'm probably more cynical than you are. And I think that your level of cynicism is going to affect your answer on this question. But I think that people who are ignorant, there's not a lot of point in trying to reason with them. So if someone's like, Tom Dell is the devil, it's like, I want to correct them, like, internally. Like, he's not. He's actually pretty awesome. But, why fight that fight? Like, why not just stay positive and focus on, like, the people who do agree that he's probably not the devil and he's probably a really good guy? Like, that makes sense?
You gotta use your mental energy wisely.
What's that?
You have to use your mental energy wisely?
Yeah. So if someone's ignorant, I probably really wouldn't engage. But if I was like a community leader and someone else who if I saw a community leader do it, that would be different. But if I saw a community member being irresponsible, like, I probably wouldn't say something. But like, Jeff, if you came out today and was like, Yehuda Katz is the worst thing, I could be like, wait. Yehuda Katz is amazing. Yehuda Katz changed JavaScript for the better. Like, you know, he is awesome in his own right, and, you know, we should respect that. And I think it was Vojta who gave a talk a few years at .js, and it really was super inspiring. It was about open source and, like, leaving your mark. And just because you don't use the framework that someone's building, you need to realize that they're building it for you. They're building it for everyone. So the Tom Dales or whoever, I hate that we keep singling out Tom Dale because he's not a bad person. But the people in the community who oppose maybe our thought stream, they're not against us. They're actually building software that they hope we'll want to use someday. So, like, you shouldn't really be mad at them for building a competitor framework. It's like, when you look at why they built it, they actually built it for you too. Like, they're hoping you'll use it. So, like, there's really no malice in that. Like, I can't find any. And so I think you should be thankful for competitor frameworks and say, you know, it'd be like being a religious Android or iOS user. I hate the other one. It's the worst. It's like, well, they make each other better. Why won't you want the other one? Like, competition's always been a good thing. That also extends to the front end JavaScript framework realm as well, right? Like, you should be happy that they're there. Without them, who knows where we'd be?
So one other tough situation, and this is a different angle. So both of us, I think, have a pretty sarcastic sense of humor, dry wit, that type of thing. So I mean, I know I've had this in my life, and you probably have as well, where you're making a joke or something like that, and somebody takes it the wrong way, where they're actually offended, and they view you as actually not being a bridge builder, not being, you know, a good community person, but you didn't mean it that way or whatever. So, like, how do you A, prevent against that? When it does come up, like, how do you kind of address that type of issue?
It's tough. It's really tough. There was a scenario at ng-conf this last year. I'm going to bring in ng-conf because that's been an amazing experience. As a community member myself, it's been crazy how ng-conf has affected me. So there was one talk that, above all, everyone will remember at ng-conf, and it was Shai's talk. And some people were bothered by some of the stuff he said, and like, they were really bothered, and I think they had a right to be honest. And they wanted me to do something about it. I'm like, I did something behind the scenes, but they wanted me to, like, defame him. And I was like, there's really nothing I can say to this person that will result in them saying, oh yeah, thanks for doing that. That's good enough. Like, you did enough there. That will suffice for me to stop this witch hunt. And so, like, I don't know. I don't think you engage the witch hunts. Like, there's really not a lot of winning to be got there. I don't think that you can come out ahead in those. I think the only way to, and I think the Angular team is the same way. You just defuel the situation by not responding to it, like, publicly. You just react to it in your actions, but not necessarily with, like, words or, like, oh, let me go tweet that person to solve this. I can fix it. Like, you can't fix it. You can't fix it. If someone hates you, there's no fixing that. Like, all you can do is try better the next time with your actions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice for sure. I think I've seen that before where people try to fix things and then it makes it worse. So that's fair enough. You just use that as a learning lesson and just focus from there on.
Yeah, or you just say thanks. Like I was at NG Vegas this year. You were there. I said something on stage. No one was bothered, but one guy was bothered, and I was like, "It's actually a really important guy, though." I was like, "This could turn really south fast." So I just replied to the tweet and said, "Thanks. I think you're right." You know, because he probably was. If you're being, and that's the thing. If you're Delta Bravo, if you're off the range, just accept it and come back. Like, don't continue and pretend that you're okay. Like, and I probably have more of a problem with that than anyone that definitely anyone here on this video cast, but than most. I probably have a problem with going off the range, but yeah, just acknowledge that you went off and come back and say thanks for someone steering you back in.
Aimee,
But yeah, so
question?
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna pay homage to the Angular community for like all they've done for me. Because like 3 years ago, I was just sitting here with some friends and I wanted to go to an Angular conference and couldn't find one. So my friends and I were like, maybe we should do one. Like, what do you think? Do you think it would happen? And we're like, maybe we get a couple hundred people to come to a conference with us. And we had no idea that it was going to turn into ng-conf. And it was going to become this thing that, like, it means something to people. At first, for us, it was just a conference, but then, like, someone came to us and was like the guy, his name's Josue, he's in Mexico City. He came and he was like, the second I saw your website, I knew I needed to do something bigger, and I created AngularJS meetup in Mexico City. Like, and so it meant something to him. And like, Bonnie, she's in Houston. She did the exact same thing. She's like, I saw this and knew I needed to get more involved, and so she went and created NG Houston, and now it's like it's a vibrant community. So I think that the community's been so great to us, like to me, by like saying, hey, we want to be part of this conference, and like I'm really just a guy, but they treat me like so much more for just this conference that I got lucky to do. And so I really could never find the appropriate way to thank the Angular community or like quantify like financially like how much it's affected me. It's been super, super positive though. Like I love almost everyone in the Angular community. It's a great place, you know.
Yeah, and we love you too.
Woohoo!
So I have a few questions about conferences since you're talking about this. As an ng-conf organizer, what do you think about code of conduct for conferences?
Well,
do you see it as a necessary evil, or?
I don't think it's an evil at all. I think it's epic.
Yeah.
I think code of conducts are awesome. Like, when you look at the organizers of the conference, like you have to kind of say, why do they do this? Because even though the conference is about something besides them, because they're the ones that did it, they're the ones that took the financial risk to make contracts with the hotel, and maybe some of them mortgaged their houses. Like, they invested a significant amount of time and money. So like, it's a little bit about them, even though it's not about them. Like, it is kind of about them. And you kind of have to look why they're doing it, and if anyone in the conference is going to put their risks, if they're going to put their sacrifices at risk, yeah, that's a big problem. And so I think that code of conducts are very, very important, and I take ours very personal. I've, like, the part of me that likes boxing because I like to see people get punched in the face, like, that part of me is like, man, I hope we get a code of conduct violation at ng-conf this year so that I can like really enforce it and I can be like this enforcer, like. But and I would, Olivier, you know it. If someone came up to me at ng-conf and was like, this happened, Frost would be the first guy to react. Like, I would be there and it would get fixed. But luckily, you know, we've never had to have it. But yeah. We've never really had any issues with it, but I do think they're important. we have had one time where we did have to enforce something, and we enforced it kind of behind the scenes, but because it wasn't a major issue, like it wasn't a person-on-person problem. It was, yeah, it was like a slide, and we just fixed it, and then edited the YouTube video and kind of moved on. But yeah, like, yeah, we would do anything if someone was intentionally harming someone at a conference. And I was at the Chrome Dev Summit last week out in Mountain View, and Jake Archibald and Paul Lewis, they were the best MCs of a conference probably ever in the history of the universe. No, they were really good though. And the way that they represented their code of conduct was super awesome. And like they were like, hey, we just want everyone to have fun. So if someone's making you not have fun, come tell us, and we'll take care of it. Like, and that's really what a code of conduct is. It's like, for whatever reason imaginable, even things that we didn't bullet point here, you're not uncomfortable, or you're not comfortable, tell us and we'll fix it, because that's really kind of the point of it. And so code of conducts are big, and generally I think people follow them, but I, as a conference organizer myself, I've never seen major violations of one. I've only heard of them like online.
One other aspect of conferences in the community I was interested in getting your opinion on. So there's been a lot of conferences this past year for Angular. In a way, that's a good thing. You know, more people are able to go and meet with other Angular developers. But I have noticed the one downside of that is when there is this kind of major saturation, you do start getting some people that are more in it for the money than the actual like building. Like clearly, ng-conf is built around trying to improve the community. Like that is like so clear with everything you guys do. But I've seen other conferences, because they just know there's a lot of a market out there, and sort of latching onto that. What are your thoughts on that? Like, it's probably not anything we can do to prevent that per se, but you know, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna choose my words wisely, because I take this stuff personal. These conferences and people abusing the community, I take that personal. Yeah, I see that as a problem. It's hard to say anything's purely a problem though, because ultimately you're evangelizing and you're teaching and you're getting good speakers to teach people who want to hear them. So it's hard to like say black and white, this is a bad thing. But I will say I wish conference organizers, we only had conference organizers that did code. We didn't have conference organizers who were just people who do conferences for a living. Like I wish conference organizers were just community members. I wish we didn't have conference organizers who were they're just businessmen doing conferences. Like I wish that was the case, but it's not. But it's hard to like really finger wag everyone, because like if you had a business guy do a conference in Brazil, an Angular conference in Brazil, how could you really finger wag that? The Brazilian Angular community is so huge, like it would be beneficial for them. So it's hard to, you know, like I don't know, I'm kind of torn, but I will say I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's definitely a gray area. It's not a black and white thing, so it's hard to like line them up and shoot them on it, because they are doing some good, you know.
I gotcha. Is there anything for this next ng-conf for 2016 that you have planned that you want to share now, or is it all kind of secret in the works?
No, dude, there's tons of stuff I could talk about. So it's 3 days. Day 1 and day 3 are just like the typical day 1 and 2, and then we have this day 2 in the middle that's like it's not a thing you've ever seen. Like it's a conference like you've never seen a conference like this, and it's a full day. We're calling it Fair Day, and it will have fair-like things. Like when you think of a fair, it will have things like that. Like there will be rappelling from the top of the building. It's like a 20-story building. I don't know. It's pretty tall.
Nice.
There will be a battle bots competition, and we'll all pick a bracket, and we'll give prizes to the winners who pick the best bracket. Like. So there will be definitely non-programming, like learning events, but there will be like all-day workshops with all the different speakers. There will be all-day hands-on with ng upgrade, so that everyone who's like at a company who needs to upgrade from 1 to 2 can do that. Selfishly, this is totally selfish, and you can make fun of me if you want to. Like, I'm hoping that ng-conf is the platform where they release Angular 2, like general release, because that would be like cool for me. But I think that there's gonna be a ton of Angular 2 1 to 2 conversion stuff there. So if you're someone who is in Angular 1 and you need to go to Angular 2, you need to come to ng-conf, which tickets are already sold, so that's neither here nor there. But you need to get on the live stream and watch, because there's gonna be a ton of it, because that's the thing right now. Like, it's like, yeah, learn Angular 2, but it's also learn how to convert your stuff from 1 to 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's almost the bigger topic.
Yep.
So
Yep.
So yeah, like, there's gonna be a lot of that, and it's gonna be just as wacky as the years past, but the wackiness will be stepped up. There'll be more awesomeness on all levels. Like, I don't really. There's some of the stuff I don't want to say, like what's going on at the after party, but I will say it's on May the 4th, so you can expect that to be a thing. Yeah, Cinco de Mayo is the second day. I don't know if Cinco de Mayo will be a thing. It might be, so be prepared. But
Nice.
But yeah, it will be a lot of fun. It's gonna be. I mean, it'll be the funnest conference you've ever been to. So yeah.
You should do a beard and mustache contest.
We could. I don't see why we wouldn't. It doesn't. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense to not do it.
Nice.
Right now, Jeff loses that right now.
Yeah. I'm terrible. When I try, there's this weird thing that, like, my hair doesn't grow like in 2 spaces here, so if I try to grow it, it just looks like freakish.
So you need a mustache.
Yeah. I could do a mustache.
Beard and mustache is bad. It's too much man. We need something that's more community. But yeah, we could do some fun stuff.
All right, there's a couple questions about, like, open source in the community. Amy, I think you have one here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you have any advice to people? I know the Angular community is always looking for contributors, and we actually kind of were talking about this before the show, how many contributors there are, but any advice on speaking to, like, people you work with about the importance of that, or?
Any advice on, like, getting your employer to let you contribute to Angular, or what are you asking?
Yeah, if you have any advice for people, because that's a big kind of barrier for a lot of people is, they have so much going on, but they want to contribute, and some people are cool with allowing you to do it during your work hours if they're using the project, but other people still don't see the value, even if you're using the project. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sales pitch everyone's going to have to fight. Like, if you work at a bank, I don't really see that happening. Like, yeah, take our code and put it back in the community. Like, it would be a tougher sales pitch there if you work at an organization that's friendly and, like, realizes what they're getting from open source. The one thing that's universally true, though, Amy, is we all work at a company that's having a hard time hiring enough good developers. Like, that should be universally true, given the climate of the tech industry right now. We can't find enough developers that we think are worth, like, that are great. And so if I was in a community and I wanted to attract great developers, I think the greatest ones would get a mad kick out of saying, yeah, we contribute to Angular as part of our job. Like, it's because when someone comes in interviews, like, anymore, part of the interview, like, half the interview is you selling them. And so I think that's a huge selling point to get people in is, yeah, we actually have 3 contributors here that contribute to Angular 1 and 2, or they contribute to Lodash, or, they contribute to TypeScript, or whatever the thing is that you're like, I want to do the thing. And so, yeah, I think that you should harvest that if you are looking for, like, another bullet point on your sales pitch to good developers. Yeah.
Awesome.
Carmen, you have your mute on? Oh,
Yeah, you're muted.
Oh, okay. But I think you were going to ask a different question about the community, or the open source rather.
You should do the voice of Carmen.
Yeah. Do the voice of Carmen, Jeff.
Hello. That's not good. Okay. No, I think the other thing we were going to ask was just how you encourage people. Like, so we talked about the management and organizations trying to get them into contributing, but there's also a big problem just within like the people in the community, regardless of the organization, that motivating them to contribute. Like a lot of people, I mean, sometimes don't even contribute issues, but yeah, like let's say that they at least do that and they complain about stuff, which actually that does have some value. So you know that there's a problem. But how do you motivate people a little bit, a step further? Like, okay, don't just complain about stuff. Try to help us fix the actual problem.
Yeah. So if you're complaining and you're just being a troll, like you've taken it beyond the like surfacing a concern to the point where you're really mad, you are not. You should stop. You're being counterproductive. You should put that effort into a pull request. You should really pour your angst into a pull request because what you're doing is not productive. It is tough though for someone like if I said today, right now on this podcast, I will give away 10 tickets to 10 random people that do a pull request to Angular 1 or 2 in the next week. Like, I'm not saying that, by the way, but if I did, that would be bad because, I mean, imagine Igor. Just imagine him. Cute. He's got his orange jacket on because he always has his orange jacket on. And all of a sudden he gets like 200 pull requests. And none of them got their tests right. And half of them broke the build. And, like, he now has to stop doing his job to go and, like, do pull request mode for, weeks. So there's some danger in like getting on a soapbox and like chanting the war cry to do pull requests and like fix stuff. Because there's a point where there's too many pull requests. Does that make sense, Jeff? To your question? But like I will say this, I feel like I've done my part a little bit. This year for ng-conf we picked a random contributor from Angular 1 and a random community contributor from Angular 2, and we gave them each a ticket. And that is probably going to happen at least a couple more times before the conference happens. So you've got a couple people who are like, wow, I've never won anything, and now I get to win this thing. And like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So we will probably, like, and it's very quiet because I don't want to have this mass tidal wave of pull requests that sinks the Angular team.
Too late.
Yeah, but so we will kind of keep doing it quietly. So yeah, I mean, and we just randomly pick someone from like the recent history, and we could give it to them, and we'll probably do that a couple more times.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, I think it's a pretty cool price. So yeah.
And you must feel like Santa when you do that.
You know, it's the fact that the Angular team treats us, like the ng-conf guys, like we're a proxy, an extension of the Angular team. We get treated ridiculously well. So we have no problem, like, trying to treat the community good back, like, in return, because they treat us way better than we deserve, and it's pretty awesome and humbling. So, yeah, you do feel like you're having an Oprah moment. Like, you're just like, you get a ticket, you know, it's pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty cool feeling.
Cool. Carmen, you were able to try get on?
I think it still doesn't work.
Okay.
You can mime, you know, with your hands.
So how would you compare? I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the other communities, the React community, the Ember community.
Hold on.
What's that?
Can I say I love Carmen?
Yes.
She's like one of the best people ever invented. She's the best.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. I'm sad I can't hear her voice.
She's giving, for those people that are listening to the audio, Carmen is giving the peace sign. So
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about some of the other communities. Do you think that, I mean, not necessarily saying good or bad, but just in terms of just like sometimes there's just a different feel. So like, how would you compare the feel of the Angular community to these other communities? Like just that, like some people say that it's more enterprise developer, more enterprise-y type. But I don't know. How do you kind of view it?
You know, it's you know, for every negative thing you can say about Angular, and the longer you've been using Angular 1, you can say more negative things. Like, you just learn more and more bad stuff every day. But like the one thing they got right, and this is irrefutable, is the community. We have guys locally who they were on the gigantic Angular wave, and since they've jumped on the currently growing React wave, right? Which I think is a perfectly fine thing to do. Like, you shouldn't finger wag anyone for trying React. Like, it makes sense to me to try React, like to use React and to maybe even use that. That's your thing now, right? It makes sense. Like, you shouldn't fault them. But even a couple, like one of them specifically, his name's Tyler McGinnis. He's one of my heroes, by the way. He has said, you know, he's one of those guys that's like, I'm a React guy now. But he's like, he even said to me, he tweeted to me the other day, he's like, I've never been as welcomed by any community like I have been in the Angular community. And he's not even really a massive Angular community guy right now. So for him to say that, it's like he's in this other community, like he's really kind of investing his time and his effort and, you know, his craft to this other thing, but he still recognizes there was something about the Angular community that was insane. And I don't know what it was, but they got it right. And so it's pretty irrefutable. Among the things that didn't happen well, the death to controllers, the flu at ng-conf year 1, the filters in the services, and like all the things that have sucked. There's really no debating, is the Angular community epic, like Hall of Fame level? It is. And it's frustrating because it is so epic when you see people not be epic and not treat each other like epically. Like a few years ago, Brian Ford one night, and I'll never remember this. I'll never forget this story because of how frustrated I was about people not being epic. He made an update to Batarang, and Batarang is a Chrome extension, so they just auto update, right? And we all showed up to work the next morning, and we were like, "Oh, I broke the app because my page won't reload anymore." Like, and you thought you spent 5 hours like commenting out your code because you thought it was something you had done, but it was really the browser extension you had installed. It was Batarang. And some community members were like, "Hey, everyone, I pulled out the old version, I zipped it up, and you can just install it. Here's how you get it, like the old version, while we fix it." So that was like their version. Like they got involved and they gave the rest of us a solution while Brian fixed it. But other people were not epic, and they were like super chest beady and super pissed. And rather than being like bridge builders or bridge crossers, they were the bridge trolls. And they were like super rude and bothered that Brian even had attempted to help them in his own time and accidentally made a bug. And so like it's not cool. Like I get really bothered when you see some people jump out and be not epic. So, because that's the one thing that's not really debatable. The Angular community's been great, like on all level. They haven't been great on accepting other frameworks, but as far as like welcoming people in and teaching them how to do it, like it's there's not anything else really to compare it to. Besides like maybe a cult or something equally as crazy. But yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
We got to start wrapping up for our picks. Does anybody else have any last questions they wanted to ask? Okay, great. So just a quick note for upcoming shows. We actually have a number of great shows coming up in December. Next week we're talking with Dimitri and Jurgen about writing Angular 2 libraries. And then the week after that, we're going to have an epic Star Wars show. So one of my friends, Kyle Newman, is the director of movie Fanboys, director of a bunch of other stuff, and is knows everything about Star Wars. His wife is actually on the Clone Wars. So he's going to come on, and a bunch of other super fans from the Angular community, and we're going to talk about stuff before the big release. And then near the end of the month, we're going to talk with Ari Lerner about NG Book 2 and some of his Angular productivity tips. So hopefully you can tune into all of those. So let's get to the picks, and let's start with Gleb.
Hello. So my pick is a library called Angular Formally by Ken C. Dodds. As you know, he has a new job, he has a new podcast, things are happening. So he's looking for people to help maintaining his Angular Formally. If you go to the GitHub, the issues 481. So help him out. It's an excellent library, and I think your contributions will be valuable. That's my pick.
Cool. Thanks, Gleb. Aimee.
Yep, so I have a tip and a pick. My tip is I've been, first year when I started programming, I spent a lot of time in Angular. I've kind of stepped back. I'm focusing more on Node right now. So my tip is if you don't understand how the event loop works, I wish I would have found this video when I was trying to understand this a while back, and it is excellent. So I'll put a link to it, but it is a talk at JSConf EU last year, and it really, really, really is just a great visual of how everything works. So that is my tip and my pick.
Cool, thanks. Carmen's pick is going to be NGNL, a conference that's coming up soon, so we'll have the link for that, and if you are able to get out to Amsterdam, it's going to be a great conference. I think Aaron, as well as a number of other people on the panel here, were there last year, so definitely check that out. Cool. And also, Carmen has something on her phone that she wants to show us. Carmen, you want to put it up to the screen? So let's see what this is.
It's the reflection of her computer screen.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well. All right, she's going to text us what that was. Okay, great. Olivier.
So I have a couple of picks today. The first one is an article by Victor Savkin, which is Angular Immutability and Encapsulation. If you're still wondering what immutability is, and it's something that's going to get big in the next year, you should read this article. I'll post the link in the Hangout. And the other one is a prelude to next week episode. It's an issue that Jürgen posted on the Angular repository about a proposal for convention to export providers in Angular 2 for libraries. It's something that we need input in it to help us figure out a way to do it, and it would help to maybe make a proposal for a style guide for Angular 2 libraries as well. So come and join the conversation because, yeah, it's needed.
Great, thanks, Olivier. So I have one tip and a couple picks. So for my tip, it's actually to do something that Dave Smith brought up on a recent blog post that I'll post the link to, where he talks about that the greatest skill you can ever have, and when you think about what you should learn for this next year, the thing that you should focus on is learning how to learn, because ultimately you're always going to have to learn throughout your career, and I don't think when people start off in software development right out of school, they don't necessarily grasp what they think that they maybe think they just get a job and then that's it. But it's a never-ending process, so the ability to learn how to learn is vital, and Dave wrote a great article about that. For my picks, a couple things. Get Human, actually, there's a band that took the get human name that is from Germany, actually. That I'll post a link to a song that they have that I just think it's always hilarious when they tweet out that this new song. So I always tweet out that it's a new song from the Get Human band. And if you like heavy metal, this is the song for you. And then last night I tried for the first time these things, Starburst Minis. If you have not had these, it sounds like silly, but they're basically like half the size of normal Starbursts, and they just aren't wrapped, and so you can grab a whole handful of them and put them on your face, and it is really good. And then the last thing is there's a number of remote comps for next year that Charles Maxwood is putting on. And so if you go to allremoteconfs.com, basically almost any technical focus that you have, there's probably one of these remote confs that is on the schedule. So you should check it out and sign up, because I've been to a couple of these and they are really good. And there's one coming up, the JavaScript remote conf that Aimee is actually speaking at. So you should definitely go to that if you haven't signed up already.
Aaron's talking too, right?
Oh, he is? Woohoo! All right, nice.
We'll both talk.
All right, Aaron, you're up.
So I'm gonna do a joke and some picks. Is that cool?
Yeah, of course.
All right, dude. Everyone's excited about using Angular 2. I'm already using ng-4. Get it? There's a directive in Angular 2 called ng-4. Instead of ng-repeat.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. It's super dry.
That joke should come with a little asterisk.
Yeah, sorry. I hope you all use that and spread that like wildfire. It deserves to be spread. Okay, so my first pick is going to be, it's a Twitter account called 30 Seconds Fight. And I apologize, everyone who just heard me say that. I just wasted 2 hours of your life, because you won't be able to stop once you watch the first fight. Okay, the second thing is it's for Olivier. He and I love the same book. It's a series called the Iron Druid Chronicles, and there's a new book coming out in January or February.
The end of January, I think.
Okay, so I'm rereading the first. It's a 9-part series. The book 8 comes out, so I'm just running through the books real quick on my way to work right now, so that I can be ready for the next one. So yeah, do the Iron Druid Chronicles. It's a totally top-notch book. But yeah, anyway, so that's my picks.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. We appreciate it. Thanks again to AngularClass for sponsoring today's show, and hopefully we will see you all again next week. Thanks a lot. See you.
Bye, guys.
Peace.